Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. K.R. Ramamohan, Associate Professor, Head Department of Anthropology. Today, we are going to discuss a module on the government programs and their impact. This module comes under paper Indian Anthropology. Before we go this module, let us see what are the learning objectives. We'll able to learn about government programs. We'll able to discuss the various government programs implemented for the welfare of women and child development. We'll able to understand the various eligibility conditions required by the government programs. We'll able to explain about the government schemes which are primarily based on primitive tribal groups or particularly vulnerable tribal groups. We'll able to learn about major impacts and achievements of government programs. To introduce these various government programs, the government of India have come up with different schemes from time to time for the welfare of these people, and these schemes could be under several heads, example central, state, specific or joint collaboration between the center and state governments. To go in detail about these various developmental programs conceived by Government of India, let us understand what is the concept of development, because the problem of development is primarily linked with the backwardness of the areas, poverty of the people, social injustice meted out against these people, and all forms of exploitation. So, the Ministry of Women and Child Development empowered all the women with a sense of dignity and contributing as equal partners in development in environment which are free from violence and discrimination. And there could be well-nurtured children with ample of opportunities for growth and development in a safe and a protective environment. So, to promote this, the central government and the state governments have been implementing various schemes and programs for upliftment of the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, many backward classes, while providing them reservations in employment services. And exclusively for scheduled tribes, there are tribal subplans, central schemes which are sponsored centrally. However, despite all these things, there is a lot to be desired towards development of all these deprived sections of the society. Let us see what are the various developmental programs. One of the important programs for adolescent girls is Rajiv Gandhi scheme of empowerment of adolescent girls. It is also called RGSEAG, the Sabya. So Sabla is a sponsored central government and introduced on 1st April 2011 and valid up to 31st March 2015. It is a package of services to be provided to all the adolescent girls which follows the criteria like giving nutritional provision, certain iron and folic supplementation tablets, periodic health checkups and referral services, various aspects of nutritional and health education which is required for these adolescent girls, and providing counseling and guidance on family welfare and ARSH, childcare practices and home management, life skill education and accessing public services, providing vocational training for girls aged 16 and above under National Skill Development Program. So the pattern of funding the schemes is implemented by the state governments, the union territories, with 100% financial assistance from central government of all the input and the nutritional provision, for which Government of India will share up to the extent of 50% of financial norms or the actual expenditure incurred whichever is less. So the beneficiaries of this scheme are individual and women, and benefited by financially through non-formal education. Another important program is the Ladli Yojana. So Ladli scheme is a scheme that aims to alter the position of the girl child in a family and in the public. It also aims to help modify people's mindsets for appropriate taking care of the girl child, as well as to offer the girl child the birthrights as stated in Indian Constitution. So on the birthday occasion of the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, the scheme was started in the year 2008. So according to this scheme, the daughter child obtains free education and upbringing with additionally after 18 years of age, she will be permitted to acquire 1 lakh rupees as loan. So the government of NCT of Delhi has launched a new scheme for protection of this girl child called the Delhi Ladki scheme, which reference to the 2008 year launching, that girls born and after the date will be benefit immediately after their birth. So what are the eligibility conditions for this scheme? So the applicant must be a bona fide resident of National Capital Territory of Delhi for at least 3 years of preceding the date of birth. The annual income of the parents of the girl should not exceed rupees 1 lakh. The girl child must have been born in Delhi as shown by the birth certificate issued by the registrar. Another important scheme for girls is the Kishori Shakti Yojana. So under Kishori Shakti Yojana aim to improve nutritional health status, self-development, awareness of health hygiene, nutrition, family welfare and management, rural development. So the adolescent girls with the age of between 11 to 18 years whose family members belong to or having less than 64,000 rupees per annum in the rural areas are all eligible for this scheme. So Kishori Shakti Yojana works on the following approach. So all the girls who are in the age gap between 11 to 15 years in the selected Anganwadi centers with the 2 girls of the age between 11 to 15 would be given with a meal of 500 kilocalories of energy and 20 grams of proteins as needed for the pregnant woman. So these 2 girls being trained at Anganwadi for 6 months in the supervision of a worker to become fully skilled individual and be able to manage the center on their own. In another program called the Balika Mandal, age group from 15 to 18, which is a continuation of this scheme, the adulthood starts from the time when she nears 15 years. Thus the scheme has more focus on mental and social development of the girls who are in the age of 15 to 18 years. So the period of active enrollment from the non-formal education, upgrading literacy skills and improve home-based skills among adults and girls. So the focal point, the scheme for adolescent girls was put in with the action from 1st November 1991. Now the scheme has renamed as Kishori Shakti Yojana and no separate budget was available, and nutrition which is provided by the state sector, beneficiaries are provided the supplementary nutrition with ICDS program under the supplementary nutrition program. Now another important program is the Integrated Child Protection Scheme, ICPS. So this Integrated Child Protection Scheme is sponsored by the central government. It is aimed to building a protective surrounding and environment for children who is living in sarcastic circumstances as well as other vulnerable children through government. Hence the civil society partnership. In 2006, the Child Protection Scheme was proposed and in 2009 it was approved by the central government. So the scheme will provide childline services, open shelters for children in need, both in urban and semi-urban areas, offer family-based solutions through improving sponsorship, foster care, adaptation and after care services, improve quality institutional services, and the general grant in aid, which is based on need-based and innovative interventions. So within the statutory support services, the scheme calls for strengthening all the community welfare centers, the local centers, as well as seeing in setting up these services in each district beyond this integrated child protection scheme. Also outlines the need for human resources development for strengthening counseling services, training, capacity building, and strengthening the knowledge. So this becomes a knowledge base to conduct research studies which create and manage a child tracking system, which also carry out advocacy and public education programs for monitoring and evaluation of these schemes. So in Balika Samriddhi Yojana was launched in 2nd October 1997. The scheme covers up 2 girls born on or after 15th August 1997 in a family below the poverty line in both rural and urban areas. A grant of rupees 500 is given to the mothers of newborn baby girl child. The girl will also get scholarship for each completed year of schooling from class 1 to class 10th, which also be deposited in the same account. So the matured value of this account will be paid to the girl when she attains the age of 18 and being reminded not married. Another important scheme which is given for the villages is the Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana. The Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana started on April 1999. It has replaced the many programs such as the Integrated Rural Development Program IRDP, Training Rural Youth for Self-Employment called TRISEM, the Development of Women and Children in Rural Areas DWACRA, the Ganga Kalyan Yojana GKY, so Million Wells Scheme MWS, Supply to Improved Toolkits on Rural Artisans, the SITRA. So this Yojana takes into account all the strengths and weaknesses of the earlier self-employment programs and policies. So every assisted family will be brought about the poverty line. It is proposed over 30% of the rural poor in each block and a target of 50% of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and 40% of women and 3% of disabled should all cover in these schemes. And now we have to look into the Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana, PMGY. So this program was introduced in 2001 with the objective of focusing on village level development in the 5 critical areas, namely primary health, primary education, housing, rural roads, drinking water, nutrition, with the overall objective of improving the quality of life of the people, particularly in the rural areas. So rural electrification was added as an additional component from 2002 onwards. So it has the following components. The primary objective of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana is to provide road connectivity through good, well-developed roads to all the rural habitations with a population of more than 1,000 persons in the year 2003 and those with a population more than 500 persons by the year 2007. So Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana, the scheme is being implemented in all the rural areas. The objective is to have the sustainable habitat development. Though it started in 1989, it merged with the Jawahar Gram Samriddhi Yojana, which was the earlier title for this project. And the objective of the program is to provide additional wage employment in rural areas and also to provide food security. So Swarna Jayanti Shahari Rozgar Yojana came into operation in December 1997. So through this, a restructuring and streamlining of the earlier urban poverty elevation program, the Nehru Rozgar Yojana. So this urban basic services for the poor and the Prime Minister's integrated urban poverty elevation program. So it seeks to provide employment to the urban employed or the underemployed living below poverty line and educated up to 9th standard by encouraging and setting up self-employment ventures or provisions for wage employment. The next one is the Antyodaya Anna Yojana. This program was launched in December 25th, 2005. The scheme aims at providing food security for poor families. The scheme contemplates identification of 10 million poorest of the poor families and providing them with 25 kgs of food grains per family per month at a low price of 2 rupees per kg of wheat and 3 rupees per kg for rice. Similarly, there is another program which is called the Annapurna Yojana. Annapurna Yojana was inaugurated on March 19th, 1999. Initially, the scheme provided 10 kg of food grains to senior citizens who are eligible for old age pension but could not get its due to one of the reason or the above. Later on, it was extended to cover those people who got old age pensions. So food grains are provided to the beneficiaries at subsidized rates of 2 rupees per kg of wheat and 3 rupees kg for rice. Now, let us see the government schemes primarily based on for the particularly vulnerable tribes. So different schemes are introduced for the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. The tribal research institutes are called TRIs. So there are 15 tribal research institutes at Port Blair, Andaman and Nicobar Islands during 2002 and 2003. So these research institutes provide planning inputs to the state governments, conduct research and evaluation studies, collect as much as data is involved in codifying of customary laws, and conduct training seminars and workshops. And some of these institutes also house museum of exhibition of various tribal artifacts. And there are boys and girls hostels for the scheduled tribes, which are centrally sponsored schemes. So tribal children are deprived of education as the hamlets and villages they reside do not have such educational facilities. So the girls hostels scheme was started in the third 5-year plan with the aim of providing residential facilities to the tribal girls in pursuit of education away from their home. So the ashram schools in the tribal sub-plan areas were centrally sponsored in 1991 to provide central assistance to these states and union territories on 50% and 100% basis respectively. So during 2003 and 4, rupees 6.4 crores was sanctioned and released for the additional construction of 315 ashram schools under these schemes. Another important scheme is the vocational training to promote entrepreneurship. So this scheme was under the central sector, introduced in 1992-93, aims at developing the skills of the tribal youth in order to gain employment or to seek their own employment opportunities. So the scheme envisaged setting up of vocational training centers or VTCs and 150 such vocational training centers run by the state government. Now, education of the girls in low literacy pockets. This scheme was launched in 1993-94 with the objective of raising the literacy level of tribal females in 48 identified tribal districts in 8 states with the female literacy which is below 2%. So the scheme was revised in July 1998 and now covers almost 130 districts having female literacy of less than 10% in the 14 states. So the scheme envisaged setting up of residential educational complex as from 1st to 5th standards. The scheme is implemented through the voluntary organizations with their help and the state governments and the union territories. So now the grant in aid to voluntary organization, because government cannot do many things, the ministry gives grant in aid to voluntary organizations working for the welfare of scheduled tribes, especially in the grassroots level. And specifically the projects like residential schools, hostels, medical units, computer training units, shorthand and typewriting units, balwadis, crutches, libraries, and audiovisual units. And we can also see the village grain bank scheme for the cultivators. A central sector scheme of the grain banks in tribal villages was launched in 1996 and 97. The scheme was started on a pilot basis in selected areas. Out of the areas identified for preventive measures against the death of children and in the remote and backward tribal areas by providing a safeguard against fall in nutrition standards of the scheduled tribes living in remote rural areas. So the ministry realizes the funds through which the Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation or the TriFed, which is the channelizing agency under this scheme, an amount of 1 crore was released during 2003-04 under the scheme. Since its inception, there are 1483 grain banks have been set up in the country and they are in functional. So the post-matric scholarships. The scheme was introduced in 1944 for providing financial assistance to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe students pursuing post-matriculation recognized courses including professional, technical as well as non-professional and non-technical courses. The scheme is implemented by the state governments under the administration which receive 100% financial assistance over and above the committed liability. There are other educational schemes like the Ministry of Tribal Welfares is also the appellation of agency respect of National Overship Scholarship of Higher Studies in abroad, maintaining book banks, coaching and allied areas, graduation of merit for the scheduled tribal students. We should also understand the major impacts and achievements of all the governmental programs. So the Ministry of Tribal Welfares has been taken some key initiatives since its creation in 1999. So the ministry adopted a project approach for funding projects under Article 275 Clause 1 of the Constitution for selecting schemes based on more integrated and holistic planning. So the Parliament has passed the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Order Amendment Act of 2002. So this act provides for inclusion, exclusion, or any modification of the 270 communities which list the scheduled tribes. Revision on such scale has been undertaken after more than 25 years. So what are the major impacts of these achievements of these government programs? An information and detailed bilingual website of the ministry which launched in 2002. So the ministry has also tied up with bilateral and multilateral agencies for international cooperation in the field of tribal development, and few projects are under implementation. So due to the implementation of the provisions of these panchayats or extension to the scheduled areas, the Act of 1996 is also called as the PESA Act. The scheduled tribes have been politically empowered in the 9 major states. At present, there are 2,22,600 tribals have been elected under the PESA Act. So a new Scheduled Tribes Finance and Development Corporation was set up with an authorized share of capital rupees 500 crores as an apex institution for financing economically viable projects for the scheduled tribes. A new scheme titled Adivasi Mahila Shakshatkaran Yojana was launched through this body for extending financial assistance of rupees 50,000 to the eligible scheduled tribe women at a more subsidized interest rate, a maximum up to 4%. So allocation of grants under Article 275 Clause 1 of the Constitution increased from rupees 200 crores to 300 crores, which provided the post-matric scholarships for of all the post-matriculation courses, technical, non-technical, where 27 lakh students and 5 lakh students per annum. So the scheme has been revised. So rates of scholarships have been increased since 2003. There is another sanctioned construction of 298 boys and 171 girl hostels having 18,471 and 20,000 seats respectively, and created employment for 2,344 persons. So the ministry has sanctioned construction of 315 ashram schools having 24,300 seats available and employment opportunity for 350 persons in the last 4 years. So for promoting education among the tribal girls, exclusively for the 74 districts having female literacy rate below 10% level as per the 1991 census, there are 183 educational complexes have been set up. So in these complexes, over 2 lakh girls are enrolled annually. So these educational complexes provide employment to approximately 915 teaching and the same number for non-technical personnels. So they provided special assistance to the time of rupees 16 crores for the development of infrastructure in the newly created states of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Uttaranchal. So the Ministry of Tribal Welfares will launch new development and welfare initiatives for the welfare of all the scheduled tribes. So these will include the construction of hostels for both boys and girls in all the districts, and implementation of various scholarship schemes for educational development, increased employment opportunities for all the sections of the people, including the backward classes, and there is an increased reservation for seats for the weaker sections of the society, rural development schemes, and various other programs for the upliftment of the status of Indian people. To summarize, the Indian Constitution has realized that scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, and the particularly vulnerable tribal groups are the main group and have the problems in the process of development. Hence, there is a special responsibility for the state to promote the welfare of these backward classes, the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and again the particularly vulnerable tribes. Various programs were launched which particularly aim at promoting the process of social and economical empowerment and empowerment process for women and children through the range of policies by creating awareness about their rights, their privileges, by thus facilitating institutional and legislative support to enable them to realize their human rights and development to their fullest potential of each and every individual. Hence, the central government and the state government have been implementing various schemes and programs and welfare measures for the upliftment of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes by providing them reservation in employment services, and this has also been seen by creating various tribal subplans and many central schemes and various centrally sponsored schemes to cater to the needs of these people in various sectors, in education, in health, in the infrastructure, in the governance systems, where all these things are there, but yet there need to be a lot to do more.